In this video, we are going to take the original web page that we built that had pretty much no styling on it, and we're going to put some style in, okay? We're going to build an external style sheet, we're going to link it, and we're going to add what we need to the tags in the HTML so that we can load the style and see this look a little better. Or the way I do it, probably a little strange, okay? But we're going to play with styling, and we'll talk about some of these things as we go. Again, a link to download this content will be in the comment section of the video so that you can download it as well. All right, so this is what it looks like right now. And if I go to, and for the sake of time, I created a blank file called mystyle.css. And here is our code that we built in the last demo. All right, so one of the things we're going to need to do, as we mentioned in a couple videos ago, is we need to link in the style sheet. Okay, so what I'm going to do is in the head section, I'm going to link in the style sheet. So here we go. I'm going to go to the head, and I'm going to say link rel equals style sheet. Notice that none of this is capitalized, okay? That can kind of mess you up as well. Type equals text/CSS, and those you just do them that way, okay? That is the syntax that's required. href, this is going to be the file. Now, if you look up here, you can see I named it mystyle in camel case.css. So it's going to be equal to quote mystyle.css. And then I'm going to close the tag. And then I'm going to hit Control S for save. So now I have linked the style sheet in. Now if I load this, nothing's going to happen. Why? Because there's no style there. There's no style in the head because we're going to do this in a CSS. Okay? So there's no styling. All right? But what I do know that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to put my Google link, where's my Google link, this guy, I'm going to want to put some styling on that. Now, I tend to not style a lot on the link itself with the exceptions that I'm going to show you. So what I like to do is if I'm going to do something weird around a link, I'm going to wrap it in a div, okay? So I'm going to take this link right here, and I'm going to make a div tag, and then I'm going to go below it, and I'm going to close my div tag, and then I'm going to tab this guy over, maybe even one more, just so you can see that this link is within this division. Okay, and then just to be clear, I'm going to have another space here, and this button I am going to want to assign a specific ID. I'm going to say this is a one-time use only. A lot of times with buttons it's going to be a class, but I want to show you an ID on the button. So I'm going to say ID equals, and I'm just going to invent the name button flare. Okay, and I've assigned that CSS ID to the button. And for the division, for the div, I'm going to make this a class. I'm going to say class equals, and I'm going to invent the name odd link. Okay, there we go. And another reason to use an app like Notepad++ is colorization can also give you clues if you're performing syntax wrong. Okay, so now let me just check my notes to make sure that I've added everything I want, and I think I have. Okay, so I'm going to Control Save. I'm going to save this, and now we need to go build out our CSS. Okay, and for the CSS, what I'm going to do is I'm intentionally going to use all of the selectors, okay? So I'm going to use every one of them that we've talked about, all of the basic selectors, And then for the link, I'm going to show you 4 selectors that are basically sub-selectors and show you what that looks like on a very simple level so that you can see you can go beyond the 4 basic selectors and you can kind of fine tune them. Okay, we're not going to get into that in this video, but I want you to at least kind of see it, okay? So that you're not like horrified and shocked when you see it for the first time. All right, first thing we're going to do is the global selector. I like to do this guy first just because it reaches everything. To me, it just makes sense to be at the top. And what I'm going to change here is I'm going to say that our design consideration is that we don't want fancy floral looking fonts. We want straight letters. We don't want any of the curls at the end of the letters. So we want a sans serif type font family. So basically in here, I'm going to say font family, and we want sans, and that should be capitalized, sans serif, semicolon. And notice that this is black, okay? Because it did not recognize it because I missed the Y. Notice the minute I hit the Y and spelled it correctly, it turned purple. Again, IntelliSense is a beautiful thing in IDEs, and when we get into programming, in programming languages, it can save you hours, okay? When I was learning to code in college, we just had text. We didn't have IntelliSense. We didn't have anything trying to auto-complete for you. And we'd have printouts going down the wall trying to trace our code. IntelliSense and colorization is wonderful for computer science, okay? So here we go. Global selector, everything on the page. For everything on the page, the font family is going to be sans serif, okay? And again, that's a good, reasonable use of the global selector. And I just don't want to go any further than that on that. Now, I'm going to say that I do want my H1s to be red, okay? Probably nothing I'd ever do in a real web page, but I just want to pick an obvious color that's easy to see. So I'm going to say H1, and you'll notice kind of my habit is to build the selector and then the braces, okay? I want a region that I know I'm going to type in, and I'm going to just go in here, and I'm going to say I want the color to be red. Now you can get into fancier colors. You can get into RGB, RGBA, which allows you to set the opacity, where the opacity is between 0 and 1. 1 means you see it, 0 means it's invisible. There's all kinds of things you can do with colors that's beyond the scope of this video, but you can also pick some of the base colors that are available and just type out the color name. All right, so we're going to say all of our H1s we want to be red. All right. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to create the button flare ID for my button. Okay, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to add quite a few things to this, and it all affects the button itself, and it'll make it kind of cool. So actually, you know what? While I'm here, let me do this. I'm going to hit save. Okay, and let's just go look at this. Let's go to the browser and see if it's working. Look at that. You should have seen the font move to a sans serif font, and my H2 jumped to, or my H1, excuse me, jumped to red. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Now I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to my HTML, and in here I'm going to call this my style 2, just to intentionally misspell it. Okay, and I'm going to load it, and look what happens. None of my styling came in. Okay, it's just not there. So that's because it could not load the my style 2 because that doesn't exist. So when I fix my typing, save it and go back, where's my mouse? There she is. All right, let's hit return. There we go. Okay, so my styling is kicking in. It's beginning to work. All right, so that's a good thing. So let's keep going on the styling. I'm going to build, so it's an ID tag, which is a hashtag, and in my tag I called it button flare. Button flare, and I used camel case on that again. Did I spell it? I think that's right. So I'm going to give myself the region, and then I've got some typing to do here. So we're going to start with background hyphen color, and you can look all of these up on the web. And in this case, we're going to use 4CAF50, which is a color format. Again, you can look all of these formats up. There's color selectors that can give you the HMYK, the RGBA. They're all available on the web, easy to look up. Make sure I have a semicolon at the end. Okay, and then I'm going to say border, none. I do not want a border around it. I'm going to say color, white, which is going to make the text color of the button white. Okay, then I'm going to say padding. This is the area around the text inside the button. And I'm going to use exact measurements of 15 pixels and just a space and 32 pixels. And again, you can look at the horizontal and vertical padding elements of CSS. And then I'm going to say text align to center so that the text is centered on the button. Make sure I don't miss my semicolon. Text decoration. And you'll notice most of the multi-word, well, all of the multi-word parameters have hyphens. Okay? Text decoration is going to be none. Semicolon. Display, if I have multiple, is inline block. That's not really going to affect this particular button, and then I'm going to say font size goes to 16 pixels, and margin is going to be 4 pixels and 2 pixels. Semicolon, semicolon, looks good so far. And then cursor, I can even change the cursor. I'm going to make sure it's a pointer. Okay? There we have it. So let's save it, and let's go look at this bad boy and see if it works. Ho, look at that. Okay? We have a green button with no border, white text, and if I click it, it does the same thing it used to. In the earlier demo, it takes me to Bing. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Now that looks a lot more, and see the pointer? See how the mouse becomes a pointer? All right, so that's a lot cooler. That's a lot better looking button. Okay, so I kind of like that, right? That's a decent looking button, and that's something I could use on a web page. All right, so it may take 10, 12 small little parameters to get it going, but it's a lot of fun to play with this and come up with new ideas. And if you find yourself really good at this kind of design, there are jobs waiting for you in web design. All right, so now that we've got an ID example, we're going to build a class, and I think I gave, so the class is the period, so period, and I called it odd link. Okay. And for odd link, I'm just going to say, let's give it a region. All right, we're going to say for odd link, we want the font size to be 34 pixels. We want this sucker big, okay? And then border radius is going to go to 50 pixels. Now, I think you're going to like border radius, okay? I think you're going to like that effect. But let's go back here. I'm sorry, I want to go to my demo HTML and make sure. Notice I put it on the div, okay? I didn't put it on the link itself. I put it on the division. All right, so let's see what this, let me make sure I saved that. Come back over here. I don't think I didn't save that. All right, so let's go back here and load it. And notice it's really big. Okay, it's really, really big. All right, I don't really see the border radius because the background is white. Let's see if we say, let's use the same color. Control C. Let's set the background color. Control save. Let's see if we can make this kind of look like a button. Okay, now I'm actually glad it happened this way because you can see that the division runs all the way across the page. Okay, this is why you will frequently have smaller divisions inside a wrapper division, which is allocated a certain amount of the screen, if you will, all right, to contain that. So that's the difference between a division and a button as far as the area of the screen that can be affected if it's not bounded some other way. All right, but notice the rounding. Okay, that's the border radius. So I could go to my button. I could go to my button and say border radius equals 50. And now I have a cool rounded button. Okay, you make it the higher your border radius, the more it gets close to a circle. If you've ever seen web pages where a person's image is in a circle, they're using a very large border radius. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Now what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the background color on the div, because what I want to show you next is a little bit of sub-selecting when it comes to links. Okay, so what we're going to talk about, this goes a little bit further than we did in the slides, but I think it's worth showing. So there are 4 statuses, if you will, of a link. It can be just the default link as it's presented to you. It can be visited, meaning it's a link that represents somewhere that the browser knows you've already been. Kind of a historical indicator that, oh, you've already been to that one. If you've ever gone to Google and you're searching for something and you check out one of the sites and go back, that link's different. You can tell that you'd already visited that one in the search listing. That's what visited is. Then you have hover, which means you're hovering over it, so it changes color to let you know, hey, I'm the active one you're pointing at. That's very helpful on like small screens or phones or things like that. And then the active link is when you click down on it. When it's clicked, that's the color. Okay, so we're going to show you that. The one we might not see is the default one because we've already been to Google and the sites in this, and the browsers will have that cached. But we'll get to see most of it, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do this. So I'm going to say A:*link. And this is going to be the default styling when it's the first time it's seen it. Okay, so for this, I'm just going to say color. We'll make it yellow. Okay. And let's do text decoration none on all of these, which means I don't care about the underline. I don't want to see the underline. All right, now what I'm going to do to save time is I'm going to copy this and say Control C, Control V, Control V, V, V. I need 4 of them, but I'm going to change from link to visited. Then I'm going to change this one to hover. And then I'm going to change this one to active. Now, a little quirk with CSS. This one has to come after this one. This one has to come after this one. This one has to come after this one. In other words, use this order all the time, or you can get some mistakes. It just doesn't do it right, okay? So link, visited, hover, active. LVHA. If you remember that, LVHA, you're going to do them in the right order and it's going to work, okay? So now they're all yellow, so that's not very interesting. So let's make visited. We'll turn that one into green. And we'll make hover something, hopefully, let's try hot pink, which is actually a color. And then we'll go with black when we've got it depressed, okay? So now let's try this. So, and by the way, you'll notice we've got a pretty clean, organized page. All right, so let's highlight this, see what happens. Okay, notice, oh, we do see the yellow. Look at that. All right, so there's the yellow. All right, now there's the pink, right, because we're hovering over it. I click it, it turns black, right? Now, when I go to it and I go back, it's green, which was the visited, okay? And now I won't be able to get it to go yellow again, okay? If you really want to test the original link status, what you do is open up one of your browsers in privacy mode, and it'll never cache any of the information. It'll always look like it's the first time you've been to the page. Okay, so that's one way to check that. But what we've seen is that we can easily link in a cascading style sheet. We can use IDs and classes, and type selectors we don't have to do anything for. So for the global and the types, we don't have to do anything in the HTML. But if we're going to use an ID selector or a class, we need to assign ID equals or class equals to the name. And notice that those 4 special ones I did, those are actually type selectors, but it is selecting the link when it is just the default link. It's selecting the link when it's been visited. It's selecting the link when it's being hovered. It's selecting the link when it is active, meaning it's been clicked. Okay? So you can get into a whole world of sub-selectors so that you can reach into your page all the way down kind of into a section and grab whatever it is you need. But that is way beyond the scope of IDT. So we're going to leave that for another day. What we're going to begin to move to next is an introduction to programming. We're actually going to start to do some coding now in Scratch. So that's the next unit. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I will see you on the other side.